Good evening, Bruchim Abayim Rabotai. Welcome to another edition of our Thursday night's class. Tonight's class was sponsored by somebody who wants to stay anonymous, that he should be Zocheh Lezer Shekayama Bari V'Shalem B'Mera. Amen v'Amen. The truth is, I was told by my advisors this morning that maybe we shouldn't have a class this week because there's two big events that the majority of the normal attendees had to be by. So they said, we feel bad, you should come from Lakewood for nothing, and that. There'll be nobody there. So I made my decision based on Mori Rabbi Shiva Shlomo Zalman Zitzel, that he used to come from Shari Chesed to Beit Vagan on two buses when he was towards the end of his life, on Chanukah to say a shir, even though there was only one person in the shir. One year there was two, but in general there was only one. So if Shlomo Zalman, the Gdol Ador, took two buses to come for a shir for one person, so it makes no difference how many people are there, not there. Such a warped way of thinking. I was buying shir, there was 2,000 people there. Guess what? Nothing came out of it. It doesn't. Hashem doesn't look at quantity; He looks at quality. For one Jew, it's worth the whole thing. It's worth the whole world. It's worth going to the world and back. So we're in the Adar season. So really tonight I want to talk a little bit about Simcha and Adar. But what should I do? When I have good stories, I got to share them. So yeah, we first got to do that. So there is a gentleman who, maybe you won't associate the name of the person, but you definitely know. Sometimes he has some boys that come and sit on the front row, 3 boys from Bayswater. His name is Meir Borus. He came last week. He didn't come to the shiva, but he came after the shiva. I was sitting upstairs learning, and he came. I see him. I said, Meir, Baruch haba, no. V'ma zachiti, what do I have such a schus that you came to me for? So he tells me, I came to tell you a story. I said, stories you say before 9:15 on a Thursday night, not after. He said, I tried to make it before, I couldn't make it. He says, better now than never. So I said, fine, what's the story? Let me hear what I'm missing out on in life. He tells me an amazing thing. 2 weeks ago, Shabbat, he stayed in my house. He was by me. Hashem, together with many other people, you know. The more the merrier. So, he was by me. He wasn't by me for a while. The time before that he was by me wasn't for such a happy reason. It was for the shloshim of my rabbi, so by the shloshim, he saw that near my seat in the dining room, I had a big picture on the wall on a canvas of Rav Shlomo. Big picture. And then he came to me at the end of the night and he says he wants it. So I told him, no problem, you could have it, but you have to give X amount of dollars to charity. I don't remember what I told him exactly. And he agreed, but I wasn't going to give it up because I didn't mean it. I thought that was a hint, like, you know, you're not getting it. But and I got out of it somehow. I didn't give it. But I didn't want another Jew wanting something that I have and not having it. That for sure is not fair. So I wanted to get him one. So I told him, well, what do you want? Give me a week or two, you'll have it. So I called my daughter who made it, and I told her, do me a favor, order some more, people want them. So she ordered a bunch more. Baruch Hashem, my house is hefker. People come and go, and there's no accountability, we'll call it. And I say that with a lot of pride. Hashem should give me the schus, it should always be that way. They say, the Brisker Rav said about Reb Chaim, not that I'm comparing myself in any way, God forbid, that in Reb Chaim's house, they used to hang posters on his dining room wall. Like if there was no cars back then, but hypothetically speaking, you're selling a car, you would hang a poster in his dining room wall. Because there were so many people who walked in and out and did whatever they want, there was a good place to advertise. There was a lot of foot traffic. The Brisker Rav once said over that he was in the middle of writing Chidushei Torah in the Rambam, and some poor person came in and he wanted to write a sign for something. He didn't have a pen and he didn't have a paper. And he went over to him, he didn't ask him, he grabbed the pen out of his hand, he grabbed away his paper that he was writing Chidushei Torah on, ripped off the part that was still clean and white, wrote his note and put it on the wall. And the Brisker Rav got upset and went to his father and said, what is this? You know, enough is enough. And he told him, enough is enough. This is much more important than the Chidushei Torah. To be a person who's mevate and does chesed, that's what's most important in life. And he said that changed his whole hashkafa on the way We have to, accept and deal with others even when sometimes they behave in irrational ways, let's just say. Fine. Bekitzer, so he comes here, here's his story. So he wants this picture. We order a bunch of pictures. One friend comes one day, takes 5. Normally when you take what? Takes 5. The next day somebody else comes to that. The kids, before the order can is gone. Now we got to start over again. So we order more. And every time we order and I want to send them on, by the time I get around to get my act together to figure out a way to drive it over to him, it's gone. When he came for Shabbat, so he let me know Mamash Friday afternoon 1:30 that he's coming for Shabbat. And when he told me he's coming for Shabbat, I started thinking to myself, what am I going to do? If I don't have a picture, it's bushus, the guy's waiting for 7 months already. So I said, I'll take mine off the wall if I have to. I'll give it to him. The main thing, he should go home with one. Sure enough, I look at one of the rooms in the house and there's 3 pictures there, wrapped separately and that, nice. So I was happy I didn't have to take mine off the wall. Motzei Shabbat, I don't tell him a word about it over Shabbat. Motzei Shabbat, before he leaves, I tell him, no. I said, normally people give a person when he goes into a car, to a journey, some money to give to tzedakah when he arrives. Shliach mitzvah geld, it's called. I said, I'm giving you a different shliach mitzvah thing. And I hand him the picture of the rabbi, and I tell him, this is for you, the dining room wall. And it's a shliach mitzvah, when you get home, you should hang it up on the wall. He was so happy. Finally, I got it. See, it was worth coming for Shabbat. I knew I had to be here for Shabbat. He was so excited. Adkan, I knew. That part I had to do with. He comes last Thursday night to tell me the rest of the story. He's Israeli. And he works long hours. And, people who work long hours tend to drive when they're tired, which is not always the safest thing. But, whatever. What should we do? A lot of times that's what we have to do. Unfortunately, I have a lot of experience. I love when guys come to me and say, I can't come to Shia tonight, I'm so tired. I say, why are you so tired? I only slept 6 hours last night. I say, guess what, buddy? I didn't sleep 6 hours since Friday night. And I'm still coming to the Shia. And you live 3 minutes away, and I live 2 hours away. So maybe you should get your act together. So tired, he only slept 6 hours. Chazit. As if the world's coming to an end. No. So he tells me like this. He says, I went into my car, and he has a pickup truck. One of those Fords, or I don't know which company, Dodge, I don't know, one of those big ones, with the cab in the back and the whole thing. The gas guzzlers. So, he doesn't want to put it in the back because he's scared it's going to get ruined. He was waiting 7 months for it. It's canvas, very delicate. He says he's putting it on the front seat right near him. And, on the passenger seat, he doesn't have a passenger that's sitting in the front. And he's putting his clothing or whatever, his laundry, I don't know exactly what, like to protect it, like to hold it so it shouldn't tip or it shouldn't not. He was very protective over the picture. So he puts it like that right there. Then he puts his address in Waze to see what's the quickest way to get from Lakewood to Bayswater. And fine. And he gets on the road. He's tired. So what do you do when you're tired on the road? So they say all different solutions. Take a cat nap, do this, do that. One of the solutions is listen to music. Put on loud music. Keeps you awake a little bit. It creates more brain activity. So I'll tell you the truth, you're not allowed to really believe it, because the Gemara says, you can't say about yourself that you do a sin. But he told me that his preference in music is not Matti Steinmetz and Mordechai ben David. Let's just say that. It's, it's some other people from Israel, Chadads and Zakens and whatever, that style. No. So he says he takes out his phone. It's connected CarPlay, brand new car he has. And he puts on and whatever it's called, what's Apple Music. He puts on whatever he listens to. I'm sure we can't even say the name. So doesn't work. Thinks maybe the Bluetooth is not on. He checks the phone. No. Then he said, okay, maybe there's a problem with the CarPlay now. Sometimes it happens. Technology glitches. So he goes onto YouTube and puts in whatever name and picks a song and clicks. The internet on the phone's not working. Then he says maybe something's wrong with the phone, so it's a brand new phone also. He's going to shut, not brand new yesterday, but whatever, in a few weeks. He's going to shut off the phone and turn it back on. A lot of times when you reboot your phone, it starts working normally again. He shuts off the phone, he turns it back on. Apple Music doesn't work, YouTube doesn't work. So then he has a few other apps. He told me all the names. I'm sorry, I'm not so fancy. I don't know all these names. Spotify, this one, that one. Nothing works. Then he says he's going to take it to the next level. He's going to turn on the radio. The radio doesn't work. So now it's not a phone issue anymore. Okay, he didn't make much of it. He didn't understand really. But it's a kaparat avonot. It is what it is. He didn't listen to anything. He spoke on the phone to somebody and got home safely. Comes home all excited with the picture, goes running into his dining room, takes down another picture, sets up, puts the rabbi's picture up on the wall. And then he realizes that he didn't fill up gas, and he leaves very early in the morning to work, even on Sunday. And he's going to leave the house, and he's going to go whatever. I think it was to go get gas, either pizza or gas, one or the other. I think he said gas. Goes into the car, but it's bugging him that his phone's not working, his thing's not, nothing's working. Puts on his Apple Music, it works. Puts on Spotify, it works. Puts on YouTube, it works. Puts on the radio, it works. Everything he puts on works. He says, I just came to tell you the story and I want to know what you make out of it. I said, I make out of it something very simple. The rabbi has different taste than you in music. And maybe you should adapt your taste to the rabbi's taste in music. It might be a better idea. Chazal say, Gdolim tzadikim b'mitatam yoter b'chayayim. Tzaddikim, when they aren't alive, they're greater than when they're alive. That means a tzaddik, even the dmut diyukno of a tzaddik, even a picture of a tzaddik, has a big hashpah in this world, on a person, on whatever it is. It's a big hashpah. Big hashpah. And if we're on the subject of pictures and tzaddikim, so I'll tell you a great story. There's a gentleman who prays here in the synagogue. His name is Mr. Yosipov. Wonderful man. Does a lot for Klal Yisrael, very special person. And he told me this story years ago. He was very close to my uncle Rav Nissen Zecher Tzadik Livracha, and he should be Yibadel Chaim Tovim. And one day, my uncle was in the city with him or something, collecting for his kollel. He was very tired. And now, he lives in a large living quarters, we'll call it. But back then, he lived still in something very small. And my uncle came to his house at the end of the day, and he told him, listen, I'm very, very tired, and I need to sleep. You have a bed for me maybe, just for an hour or something? I need to take a nap. I'm very tired. So he said, yeah, sure, what's the question? And his wife tells him, if the rabbi needs to sleep, we're not going to just give him a room with a high-rise box spring. Sometimes, in general, I don't sleep at people's houses even when they offer me, because it's like enter at your own risk. You never know how, if the mattress is older than you, and if the box spring is going to go through your back, and if it's the safety. And the few hours that I do sleep a week, at least that I want to sleep. So I'm a little bit particular. So she understood that rabbis that travel and that need the few hours sleep they get a week, they need. So she tells her husband, we're not going to put him in the kids' room. The mattress is not comfortable. You feed the rabbi in the meantime, and I'll go up to our bedroom. I'll change all the linen. I'll clean everything out. I'll make it, the way it has to be. It should be respectful for him, and he'll go to sleep in our bedroom. And tonight I'll already reverse it. And if he decides to stay the night, so we'll sleep in the kids' bedroom. That's Vilach Nozazochim. I think there's a lot to learn from that on many fronts. But on one of the fronts is most houses, the guy in his own bedroom, he buys himself a Daxiana for $10,000. In his guest room, he buys some mattress from, I don't know what they're called, the wholesale discounters for $99. Why is the guest fourth class and you're a Prince Charming? I'll tell you the truth, in my house, all the expensive mattresses are in the guest rooms. The cheap ones we use. For us, that's good enough. For the guests, they should have achnasat orchim. That's a mitzvah. They should have the most comfortable accommodations. So he's a man who thinks like that. So they set him up the room. In the meantime, he eats, calms down, he feels stronger, he's happy. He goes up to the room. And it seems like it was like a 2-floor, I think, house or something, but it's very small. like apartment or something. It was very small. And they're right under the bedroom where he's going to sleep. And 1 minute after he's in the room, they hear a huge bang. It sounded very scary. So the husband went running up and he knocks on the door. And my uncle answers. He says, "You okay?" He says, "Yeah." He said, "What happened?" So my uncle tells him, "Tzelem ba'ichal." There's an avodah zarah in the holy place, meaning the place that I'm in. He didn't understand what he's talking about at all. So he said, "Can I come into the room?" He said, "Sure." He said, "Besides, there's shattered glass all over the floor. You might want to clean up the mess so I can, you know." What turns out, he got married a bunch of years before that. He had a wonderful photographer. Made him a beautiful wedding picture. He's a good husband, and he has a great wife. And he decides that he's hanging up his wedding picture in his bedroom. Not just in his bedroom, right across from where they sleep. They should always see Yom Chatunato, Yom Simchat Libo. No, he does that. Now when you get a picture framed from a photographer, you don't know what's in the frame, or what type of paper they use to back the picture, or whatever else. It turns out that the way they built the wood behind the picture for the frame of the picture, it was the shape of a cross. Now it was on the wall, nobody saw it, nobody knew it. My uncle, Mirov Kedushato, his body couldn't tolerate a room that had such a thing. So the second he walked into the room, the thing fell on the floor and shattered to pieces. And that's when he saw the wood stayed whole, and he saw that there was a cross there. You see, tzaddikim, their pictures influence, and they're influenced by pictures. It goes both ways. That's what. So you got your story of the week. So that's a gentleman that came last Thursday. I have a witness over here in this room also that saw when he came to say the story. And I said, this is going to be my next Thursday night opening thing. But there's a great lesson from that. If a tzaddik after his 120, his picture doesn't want to hear this poison, so why you before your 120 does want to hear this poison? Maybe it's kedai to rethink what we listened to a little bit or not. And I saw a chidush somewhere, I don't remember where. If somebody knows where this comes from, please tell me. I don't remember offhand. I saw it somewhere in the past week. I read it somewhere. If you pay attention, by Achashverosh, he made a party, right? He threw a feast. 180-day feast, not bad. What did he do there? He wanted to reel the Jews in. So the Megillah says, La'asot kirtzon ish va'ish. He did it to accommodate everybody. He had glad kosher food. Real Bet Yosef, not fake Bet Yosef. Real Bishul Yisrael for the Sfardim, the whole deal. Every hechshe, every badatz, every that. Kosher sheba kosher. And then he wanted the Jews to participate. For evil reasons, but he wanted them to participate. Mordechai warned not to go. Okay. But how do we know that he did everything in a kosher way? Chazal learned that out. Where did they learn that out from? That la'asot kirtzon ish va'ish. He did like the will of a man and a man. Who's the ish and the ish? Ish Yehudi haya b'Shoshana b'ira Mordechai HaTzadik, meaning the Jewish way that resembles Mordechai. And ish tzal v'oyev haman hara hazeh Haman's way. So he had a non-kosher menu and a glatt kosher menu. He had them both. What else did he have? Wine. You have to understand how it worked. We ate nesach and whatever, but there's a discussion in the Rishonim. He even worked out the wine for them. So he had food, he had wine, everything he did, he had a kosher section. He was accommodating the kosher people. If you throw a party and you're a king and you're spending so much money, and the Megillah clearly says he was busy showing off his wealth, meaning the party's purpose was to show off his wealth. So what's one of the first things that you need by a party, especially if it's a nice party? Let's rephrase that. Shah Tova, whoever's not married yet and is over 18 should get married soon to a good person, happy and healthy. On your wedding night, what's the most important part? I'm not talking about spiritual. Don't start telling them Sadek Kiddushin. By the way, that's the least important. The Edim was what's important, not the Sadek Kiddushin. This might not be politically correct, but who cares? I'm not politically correct. Rav Zalman was once by a wedding in Goren. He was a quote-unquote chief rabbi in Israel back in the day. Was supposed to be Rav Zalman was supposed to be in Sadek Kiddushin because it was his student, and Goren was supposed to be a witness. And Rav Zalman held that Goren wasn't considered whatever. His hashkafa was wrong. So he's not kosher leidus. But he didn't want to insult him because after all, he was considered the chief rabbi of Israel. So listen to the brilliance of Shlomo Zalman. He went over to him and he said, I'm just a Rosh Shiva. You're the chief rabbi of Israel. It's not respect that I should be Misadeh Kiddushin and you should be a witness. I'm going to give you to be Misadeh Kiddushin and I'm going to be a witness. That's what he told him. What's the brilliance behind it? To be Misadeh Kiddushin, now you can get a robot for. That's a joke. You have to know the halachot, whatever, not mess it up, but it's not that complicated and if it's a simple story. To be a kosher witness, that's already a very, very high level. Ad kedei kach, that the Nittek Avil is brought down a machloket, if yes or no, but in the poskim it brings down that a person should be, if a person's called up to be a witness by a chuppah, he should be mahar tshuva, he should think, and do tshuva before to make sure that he's a kosher witness, and that's not a joke, it's a very, very serious thing. That's Rav Shlomo Zalman's brilliance. It's an unbelievable attitude. But what's the most important thing after? Okay, so you did a nice chuppah, but what you prioritize in a wedding, what's one of the things that... So, this is maybe culture oriented, because could be in some cultures the most important thing is to put piles of food that go to the garbage. But in general, everybody understands that probably the most important factor by a wedding for a girl is going to be the photographer, and for a boy is going to be the music. Because if there's no good music, right, nobody's going to dance. It's not going to be simchat chadam v'kala. And that's why the best investment by a wedding is the music, more than anything else. Every big party, you ever went to a party in your life, like a big fancy party that didn't have a nice orchestra, or a nice, I don't know what, or a DJ at least, or something? Every party, right? Every bar mitzvah, every bas mitzvah. Today, I heard in Queens, even by a Brits, they already bring music. That's what somebody told me. I don't go a lot to events, but people told me that. Even by birthday parties, they bring music. Pay attention to this. Achashverosh threw a massive party to show off all his wealth, and it says all the details in the Megillah about everything, and there's no music. So many people don't pay attention to what? He missed the boat? It's a Pella. I remember now where I heard this from. I have a friend, his name's Ramota Frank. He's a Breslover, he's a big mashpia. He helps a lot of people that go through hard times or whatever. Wonderful Yid. You could agree with him or not agree with him, but he gives his life for Shem Shamayim for everybody. And Ramota Frank told me this a few years ago. He said, no music. I don't know if he got it from somewhere or not, but he was the one who told it to me. That's how I heard it. So he said an unbelievable thing. He said, being that Achashverosh wanted to keep the standard by the party, that whatever he does not kosher, he does kosher. So if he's going to make, if he's bringing Justin Bieber, so then he has to bring Mordechai ben David. So what was his problem? Achashverosh understood the power of music. And he said if the Jews hear kosher music, there's no chance they'll ever be able to sin. And his whole goal with the party was that the end result that the Jews should get drunk and sin. So his end game plan is going to mess up. He's not going to get anywhere. So therefore, he, in his whole fancy party, skipped music for himself too. You see from here the power of music. It's not a joke. It's kedai to think twice. Now again, I know it's a big test and whatever and this and that. And I'm not saying you can't listen to non-Jewish music at all. If it's not love songs and it wasn't written for Avodah Zarah, and if you're a male, it's a male singer. If you're a female, it doesn't make a difference at that point. And it's recorded and not live, because live music you're not allowed to listen to Mishum Avilut Chuban Abayit unless it's Yantiv, like, Chol HaMoed. So then, yeah, meaning if you're listening to Bach or Beethoven, you're allowed to listen to it. Moshe has a tshuva, a song's not Makabel Tumah, he has more than one tshuva about it. You're a Derech Beis, and you're allowed to listen to it. But I don't think that's the pop movement today. I think today they're not singing about how much they love Hashem and the flowers outside, or the sky or the moon either, or life for that matter. They're singing about other things. So that's mashpia, it has a direct influence on a person. And I said once in a shir that if a person goes to sleep and he falls asleep with headphones and his divrei Torah on, so in Shamayim I proved it. For many chazals, he gets credit that he was learning all night because the neshama heard it, even though he didn't hear it. I go to sleep like that every night with my AirPods in for the little I sleep, with normally my uncle playing on autoplay in the background. So, because why not? Why not gain more mitzvahs? And why not have the neshama have a little more kedusha in it? I'm not saying you should do it. I don't know if it's safe also to sleep with earphones. Don't take ideas from me. I'm not responsible. But whatever. Shomer mitzvah lo yida davar ra. But if you go to sleep to your playlist on iTunes, and then you wake up and you don't want to daven, well, of course you don't want to daven. Well, what did your neshama just get in the past 12 hours? All the garbage of the world in one shot condensed. And not consciously. If it was conscious, you could make a conscious decision that you don't want part of it. Subconsciously, it's 100 times worse. So what's left? So if you can't win this Yetzer Hara completely, at least at night before you go to sleep, don't fall asleep listening to non-Jewish music. At least that. That's a start already. Save the neshama during your sleeping hours. At least that much. I don't think that test is so hard. I think everybody could pass that test. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. And even if you failed, but you tried once, that's also a victory. Tried once, that's also a victory. Hashem said, Lo alechem lachalik mo. You don't have to succeed at everything. Just gotta try, even if it's once. Fine. So now, why do I say that? I say that as my hagdamat to simcha. Because really in Ada you have to be b'simcha. And even if it entails using artificial means to get b'simcha, we still do that to be b'simcha. And that's why there's a mitzvah to drink on Purim. Next week we're going to say a whole shir bli neder about drinking. And what the importance of it is. And for who it's important, and for who maybe it's important not to. And so on. Bli neder, if Hashem gives us the health. But the Maisa, there is a big inyan of simcha over here. And we have a very big opportunity if we utilize it. And in the Sfarim HaKadoshim is brought down, there's a lot of terrorists about this, the Maranaim, Neisoscha, others, that Adar, from Rosh Chodesh Adar, what does it say? Marbin b'simcha, you have more joy. So the simple understanding is the whole month of Adar, we add joy. They explain it different, that every day of Adar has to be a happier day than the day before. Aleph Adar was level of happiness this. Bet Adar is already here. Gimel Adar is already here. By the time you get to Purim, you're already in the highest places in the world. Unbelievable. So you got to make sure that the simcha comes from pure places, because otherwise, not only didn't you help yourself, you actually harmed yourself in the worst way possible. So that's why I mentioned this word from Amot Frank on music. If you're going to go to a Purim party, that they're going to play over there these singers that sing Hashem Yerachemot, then you missed the whole point. You took the greatest opportunity of the year, Purim, Kol HaPoshet Yad Notim Lo, whatever you ask from Hashem He gives you, and you destroyed it. You destroyed it with your own hands. You go to a place where the environment is Torah and Kedusha, and Rabbi Shlomo Zatzal, he never drank. Not only he never drank, it wasn't for he had anything against drinking. He didn't like alcohol. He thought it was disgusting. He said that he understands very well why the Ben Ish Chai says that on hard liquor you don't make a bracha. We don't hold like that halacha, but that's what the Ben Ish Chai holds. Because he says, because he tasted it, and it tastes like a kotz dardar, like a thorn in your throat. And something that doesn't taste good, you don't make a blessing on. So he never drank. Nothing. Even by smachot of his grandchildren, his children, whatever. Maybe a tiny sip of wine, but even that took a lot of convincing. Kiddush Friday night and Havdalah, that's a mitzvah, fine. But beyond that, he didn't. And Purim used to drink. Oh, unbelievable! It was. He would sit down to the Suda. It was like a whole new person. And he didn't cringe and make that face of a suffering. It looked like he was enjoying every bit of it. So I once asked him clearly. I said, Rebbe, you hate drinking. You laugh at us when we sit in places and we drink, and you make fun of it. You're like, this tastes good. This is what you're paying $40 for 2 ounces for. That's what he used to tell us. What's in this? Can you explain it to me? He used to tell me a lot of times. Yeah, can you explain me what's $40 and 2 ounces? I said, Rabbi, it's more than 40. Don't insult my scotch. Yeah. We used to go back and forth on the subject a lot in a friendly way. So he said on Purim, because it's a mitzvah and there's a lot of kavanos behind it, there's a lot of inyanim behind it, so the mitzvah makes it taste good. He said, so now it's a completely different story already. He said, I'm not drinking wine, I'm drinking a mitzvah. It happens to be the mitzvah is wine. The mitzvah tastes good. Unbelievable attitude. Unbelievable attitude. So the Gemara in Ta'anit Chavtet Amud Aleph says, "Kshem shemichnas av mema'atim b'simcha, kach shemichnas adar marbim b'simcha." We spoke a drop last week about this. Just like when Av comes in, we lessen our levels of joy. It doesn't say you're depressed. A lot of people walk around during Av like you think a truck hit them. No, it doesn't say anywhere not to be b'simcha. You always have to be b'simcha. Just mema'atim b'simcha. You lessen your level of simcha a little bit. Rav Nachman, I think it's in Likutei Halachot, says that to say kinot is to be mitabel Yerushalayim. That's a mitzvah. A mitzvah you have to do b'simcha. So you sit on the floor and mourn for the Shekhinah b'simcha. You cry for the Beis HaMikdash happy. Sounds like the biggest paradox in the world. But could be that's not only not a paradox, that's the only way to be happy. And I'm going to explain in a second. If you think about it from the practical aspect, in Av, in Chodesh Av, there are practical implications, right? Shivas HaTammuz, we fast. After Shivas HaTammuz, the Ashkenaz already don't listen to music and don't do this and don't do that. Sfardim are a little more lenient. Rosh Chodesh Av, some people stop eating meat, some people betav, whatever, but at one point we stop eating meat, so it intensifies the halachot. And as we get closer to Tisha B'Av, there's all different halachot. For the Sfaradim, even Shavua Shechal Bo Tisha B'Av, like we keep, so we don't take a eko, we don't shave, Shavua Shechal Bo Tisha B'Av, the Ashkenaz from Shivas HaTammuz already. So there's a lot of halachot that have to do with this, there's a lot of practical implications. Let's think about it for a second. What's the practical implication? It's not halachot. Was any halacha you did today, Father? No. And the Gemara says, kishem, just like. Just like means if there is something, so here there's something too. There's something and here there's nothing. So what's the parallel? What's the kishem? Simple question, no? It's not my question. All the Mefashim asked that question. So yeah, one of the Mefashim says that there was a minhag in Klal Yisrael to put up a sign that said "Mishenichnas Adar Ma'abim B'Simcha Rosh Chodesh Adar." That's not put down in Shulchan Aruch. If you want to do it, it's a beautiful thing. If you have kids, I'm sure they brought home signs from their Morah the first day. This year the Morahs I think were early already, Lamed Shvat, because Rosh Chodesh was 2 days. They forgot that the first day is not Adar yet, it's Shvat. They already sent home the Mishenichnas Adar. I have nothing against that. It's beautiful. There should be simcha more. The more simcha, the better. And but it's that's not halacha. It's a goodwill gesture. Fine. But beyond that, so what's the practical implication? Now, in order to strengthen the question a little bit, so I want to stress something. It says marbim b'simcha, right? So there's no practical halacha. So what are you going to say? To be happier. What does that mean, to be happier? For once and for all, I want to understand this, because if there's a way to do it, I want to do it also. If you have a good life, so you're happy. And if your life is miserable, so if you're a big balamuni, you're still happy. And if not, you're miserable. What does it mean, be happier? How does that work? Besides, la'avdil, if any of you studied psychology, then you know that anybody who has what's called an emotional thermometer in psychological terms is prone to depression in the highest degree. Meaning if you wake up in the morning and think, am I happy? No, you're going to be the most depressed soul alive. So it's not, so the whole thing makes no sense. So what's this thing? Marbim b'simcha. It's a pele. Now let's say I wake up in a bad mood and you see me in a bad mood and you come to me and say, Yaakov, be happy. It's going to help. Not only is it not going to help, it'll probably make it even worse. Because until now I felt just unhappy. Now I'm going to be annoyed that nobody understands me. And Chazal come to you and say, Mishenichnas Adam, bim b'simcha, go be happy. They were there to annoy people. They were there to make people realize that they're depressed all year and now it's time to be happy. What was the goal in this memory at all? to understand it. There got to be something deeper here. There has to be something deeper here. Also, is there some button that you could press that suddenly you're happy? Like, some people think needles do that, but Baruch Hashem, we don't have those sicknesses. So there's no button in the heart. You know, can you press anywhere? Tell me, I don't know. I have a red one, so it's easier to find them. Which one do you want to press? It doesn't work like that. So let's try. To make the question stronger, there's Gemara Psachim Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. That the Gemara says, Ein Shechina Shorah Ela Mitoch Simcha. Shechina only dwells out of joy. Right? That means that for a Navi to get prophecy, for a prophet to have prophecy, it has to come from a joyous place. So I got a question. Yirmiyah Navi wrote Megillat Eicha. Megillat Eicha was written at the destruction of the temple, while there was blood spilling in the streets that fertilized the streets of Israel for years later. That's the quantity of death that there was. Mass tragedies. He wrote it in prophecy, right? Otherwise it wouldn't be part of the Chavdalit Sfarim. That means he was besimcha. How is he besimcha? He's writing the saddest things. For example, Yedei Nashim Rachmaniyot Bishlu Yaldehem, the hands of mothers that were merciful cooked their own children, meaning after their children died, they cooked them and ate their flesh because they were so hungry they had nothing to eat. Years later, Lo Aleinu V'Lo Alechem, in Nazi Germany, there's a lot of documented stories of similar things that happened. Shalonida, on Sonei Israel, should all go on Sonei Israel all the time, always. How could you write Yidei Nashim Rachmaniyot Bishlu Yaldehem and be besimcha? How does that work exactly? How does that work? Let me break it down to you in an even more graphic way. Just because you gotta, we have to get this straight for once and for all. Last night, I'm home for a change. Baruch Hashem, Hashem gave me the schus. That's because I started saying a shir in Lakewood, so at least that's the best. Because number one, you get to talk to Talmidei Chacham. It's a lot of fun. It's a challenge. They don't let you get away with anything. They, you quote one line off and they're already all over you. So that's very good. It stimulates the brain. But number two, then I could be home. Supper with the kids, this stuff, simple things for most people. For me, it's a very big luxury. So it's very geschmack, it's very good for me. And so I'm home, and I was in my house by 11 something at night. That's a nice Purim right there. And fine, at about 1 o'clock, I say, if I'm already home and that, let's take a little nap. So I go into bed. Hashem has a sense of humor. If you want to make plans, he shows you who's boss. He always reminds you. In case you forgot, let me remind you. It didn't take, the quickest amount of time. I was paged emergency to somebody who's in a hospital in critical condition and needs to be incubated and other things and whatever. Hashem Yaakov, we should never know. And maybe Hashem will make a nice Purim, halavai, sheshavah for Shlema, but it's not simple, b'derech hateva, let's just say that. So I get out of bed, I get dressed quickly, and not even dressed, like half dressed, that Atzola style dressed, I call it. I get into the car. The only difference is an Atzola call when you're in town is, on the farthest a mile from your house. It's dispatched by zones. This is going into Manhattan already. So, you now just decided to get into pajamas, and now you got like halfway dressed back and ran to the car because every second counts, to go running to Manhattan to make arrangements to try and battle for somebody's life in the last chance there is. Imagine I would have walked into intensive care with somebody who's now living off of machines at that point by the time I got there, and her daughter and son and son-in-law and whatever are all there because they were told to come say goodbye. And while they're crying, I walk in dancing, Misha, Misha. I think I would have been punched in the face at least, no? You agree? And rightfully so, by the way. There is a minimal sensitivity. It's not, there got to be some red line in life. So, We all understand you don't do that. There's certain things you just don't do. If somebody has a funeral and of a close relative, and his friend's a DJ, and he brings lights and a spinning table and whatever to the grave, I think they'll bury him before they bury the dead guy. And maybe that's rightfully so too, not literally, but in concept. So that means we all understand certain things are the red line that just you don't cross. Ad kan, this we don't cross. And here Yirmiyahu Navi had to be mamash b'simcha while he's writing it. He's writing the most horrific things in the world, and he has to be b'simcha. But there's not Yirmiyahu Navi. The Mishnah says it, right? The Mishnah in Brachot, Perek Tet Mishnah Hey, soon the family will be up to it. Chayav Adam levarech al hara kshem shu mevarech al hatova. A person is obligated to bless on what he thinks is bad, he perceives as bad, just like he blesses on something that he thinks is good. The Gemara Sham, the Gemara over there, Daf Samech, now in the family we're up to it, that area, says, "My chayav levarech al hara kshem shu mevarech al hatova." What is it that he has to bless on the bad, just like the good? So the Gemara says, he has to accept it with happiness. Rashi writes, he should speak about the midah of God, even when it came out to be something, a tragedy, with a full heart. Unbelievable. So when somebody dies, one of the Zayin Kovim, so you make a blessing. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech hayam, dayan ha'emet, the God of justice. And that bracha, Rashi says, you have to say b'lev shalem, with a whole heart, b'simcha. The guy's burying his father. What to say with a whole heart? More than that, when he comes home, he's in Ovil. They open up the will, and he sees his father left him in the will, a building over here, and a house over there, and a property over there, and a bank account over here. They just got a big Yerusha. Now he has to get up and make another blessing, because he's not an oinen anymore, so he's chayiv mitzvahs. He has to make a tova meitiv, that he got an inheritance. Got a new house, got to make a tova meitiv. Doesn't sound so, right? But else we don't get it, right? Fine. So of course, so in a way that obviously I don't mean literally, but al derech, just for the sake of smiling during Ada. So the Hasidim say over that just like everybody understands that you can't come into Pesach and expect to have matzot on your table out of nowhere. You have to actually buy them before and prepare. And just like you understand that you can't walk in on Sukkot and have a beautiful etrog waiting for you, you got to actually go a few days before and look for one and check and pay and whatever. The same thing with Purim. You can't just come into Purim and drink chayiv inish l'psume. It takes achona. You have to build up alcohol tolerance. So mishenichnas adam abim b'simcha. Every night you drink, and a little more and a little more and a little more. It's like this. By the time Purim comes, you can really drink. Your body's already immune to it. Not good medical advice, by the way. But fine. It's just for the smile about it. But on a more serious level, there's a moedik of ma'aser of Shlomo Zalman's itself. Shlomo Zalman he used to have an open house for guests on Shabbos. Now in general, there weren't that many people because nobody would go to Shlomo Zalman and say, I'm coming to you for, like, you don't go to the Gedol Ador and say, I'm coming to you for Shabbos. It doesn't work like that. So the funny thing is, what used to be is most of the time, I don't know most, but a lot of the time, the guests that would buy him were not religious people. Kibbutzniks and this, that heard that there's some sort of rabbi who was very smart. They were curious to meet him, so they would come for Shabbos. Because they didn't realize that you don't really invite yourself like that. And they would come. So once this not religious kibbutznik came to Rav Shlomo Zalman Friday afternoon, told him he wants to stay by him for Shabbos. Rav Shlomo Zalman said, for sure, what's the question? Took him in with open arms, and tried to give him a thing. The guest is observing. This is his first time in his life seeing an Orthodox home. And he knows he's by a big rabbi, not just an Orthodox home. So he's observing Shabbat. So he sees they go to synagogue Friday night, they sing a little bit, it's a nice experience. They come home, around the table, they make Yiddish. Shlomo Zalman was machmer and a shir Chazon Ish, big cup of wine, on an empty stomach. Fine. Then in the middle of the Suda, between the fish and the meat, we drink again. Another Shir Chazon Ish. Then at the end of the Suda, you do benching, Birkat Hamazon. Birkat Hamazon ala kos, on a cup. Another cup of wine. Okay, he thought maybe if Shem Zalman likes wine, Friday night before he goes to sleep, he drinks some wine. Where was this shock? Shem Zalman down very early in the morning, Shabbos. Comes home early in the morning and he pours another cup of wine, Kiddush, Shabbat morning. And again at the end of the meal, kids, you get the idea. And each time is a big cup. Motzei Shabbat, before he left, Shem Zalman went over to him and told him, was everything okay? Did you enjoy yourself and that? So he said, sure, it was great. It was such a beautiful experience. I'm so happy. So Shem Zalman asked him, how do you summarize it? So he told him, I'll tell you how I summarize it. I always wondered why Orthodox Jews don't drive on Shabbat. It makes no sense to me. We'll walk 20 minutes to synagogue. He said, now I finally understood. You guys are drunk the whole weekend. You can't drive. That's what he took out of Shabbos by Shlomo Zalman. But he said, but I'm very impressed. I see that the team, the Orthodox, they know how to drink. They can handle their liquor. That was the conclusion of a kibbutz, the Tinuk Shenishba, when he went to Shlomo Zalman for Shabbos. No, but the Maaseh, what's Linyaneinu? What do we have to take out of this? So we'll say it just in literally a sentence or two because we're running out of time. We're really saying Dvarim Amukim Ad Ma'od that you could learn for a lot of years to understand. I know the world today doesn't believe in identifying genders. They're a little confused on the subject. But just a few years ago, when I was in school at least, my teacher wasn't scared to teach me that there's such a thing called male chromosomes and female chromosomes, and men and women are different. And I know in New York now they have on all the medical forms, how do you identify yourself? How do you want to be called? I write Pinocchio everywhere. And if somebody comes into the room and doesn't call me Pinocchio, I say I'm going to have a lawsuit. I identify myself as Pinocchio. Soon I'm going to change it to the next one. I'm looking for another character because Pinocchio's nose, that, I don't know. I have to find a better character. And I do it purposely because the doctors, what are they going to do? They see the form, they don't know if to laugh or to cry, or like, they're not going to say it, but they can't not, they're in a jam at that point. And I say, look how stupid you are. You just preached when you were teaching today in school about being liberal and accepting everybody for what he is and whatever. You yourself don't believe it. And the proof is the smirk on your face. So why are you being a liar? Where's the intellectual honesty? So Chazal clearly teach us that a man and a woman are very different. They have different character traits, different ways of going about things, and Hashem created it purposely that way. Because in basic electrical circuits, we know a plus and a plus causes a bomb. A plus and a minus causes a closed circuit. If we want to have relationships work, opposites attract. The same is going to be a disaster. So Hashem created Zachar and Keva Bra'am, and He made them with different natures, with different whatever, everything. The Navi says when a couple gets married, Kirtzon Hashem, the way Hashem wants them to get married, Umisos chatan al kala yasis alayich elokaich. What's considered the expression of the ultimate joy in the Torah? Kimsos chatan al kala yasis alayich elokaich. The way a chatan and kala are happy with each other, yasis alayich elokaich. That's the way Hashem loves you. Meaning the ultimate simcha is what's called the simchat chatan v'kala. What's the simcha of a chatan v'kala? Two opposite extremes getting together. I once said in a shir a few months ago that I got a lot of slack for, that I'm very proud of, that marriage is the only time that people go insane, otherwise known as voluntary imprisonment. Right? Nobody would volunteer himself to imprison himself, but marriage is voluntary imprisonment. That's really what it is. But Hashem made a nace that He put into the brains of people to do that, because otherwise the world wouldn't have a kiyum, the world wouldn't continue. It's a nace. No, so if the Navi says the example of what real simcha is Yasis Alayich Elokaich, is a marriage. So we see from here that the first step in being happy is knowing how to deal with opposites, which exactly fits all our questions before. How could you, Miyan Avi, in the time of mourning, be happy and say a prophecy and all the other things along that line? That is happiness. Happiness is dafka when there's two opposites going on. You have to understand why, we have to explain it maybe, but opposites don't mean that there's a problem. Opposites aren't a contradiction. If anything, they're actually an explanation. Another example. In Tehillim Kuf Tet Vav, David HaMelech writes, Hashamayim shamayim la'Hashem ve'aretz natan livnei Adam. Hashem kept the heavens for him, whatever that means, and the globe, whatever, the streets that we have, he gave us. Okay. So the Gemara, so Chazal bring in the Midrash, not a Gemara, that a Goy asked of Yeshua ben Kocha, is there any day that is a holiday both for the Jews and the Gentiles? Meaning a day of celebration the Jews and Gentiles agree on. Our New Year's is in September, their New Year's is whatever, when J.C. Penney was something or the other. All our holidays are different. Some of them overlap in time a little bit, but it's different. Even when they overlap in time, it's coincidental, right? Because we go by the lunar calendar, they go by the solar calendar. That's what he said. So Yeshua said, yes, there is a holiday. And it's a very frequent one. He said, what's the holiday? The Chazal say, Gadol Yom HaGshamim. On the day that it rains is a holiday, it's a big simcha. This year, Bli Ayin Hara, there was a lot of rain in Israel so far, and the Kinneret filled up. They're talking about even opening up that thing. After 20 years, they never opened it, so it shouldn't overflow. It's a big chesed Hashem. For years and years, there was droughts in Israel. Now it's rain, b'shefa gadol. So it's a big chesed Hashem. And then the Gemara says, Gadol Yom HaGshamim ki Yom Tchiyat HaMeitim. The day that it rains is like so great by Hashem, it's as if it's the day of Tchiyat HaMeitim. Unbelievable. It's a very big thing. Another thing, Chazal say, Gadol Yom HaGshamim she'apruta bakis mitbarechet bo. The day of rain is a big blessed day, because the money that you have becomes blessed. What does rain have to do with the money you have being blessed? What does one have to do with the other? If anything, we get annoyed when it's raining outside. So I heard from Baldarshan in Israel, Meir Schwartz. He had a good line. He says, very simple. On a regular day, you have money in your pocket. By the time the day is over, there's nothing left. Why? Because you went shopping here and bought this that you didn't need, and that you didn't need, and the other thing that you didn't need, and whatever. On a day that is raining, you don't want to leave your house. So shaputa bakis mitbarechet, there's a blessing in the money. It stays in your pocket. It doesn't get wasted over stupidity. There might be some truth to that, beyond the joke. But he told him, Yom HaGshamim is considered a holiday for the Goyim and the Jews. Goyim and Jews are opposite extremes. But the connection is rain. What's rain? The connection of the above and the bottom. Hashamayim shamayim la'Hashem ve'aretz natan livnei Adam. Because Baruch Hu kept the heavens for him, whatever that means, and gave us the land. And he sends us a gift from above to the land. He puts a connection of two different things, which are two opposites, right? We're humans and he's God. And that connection makes a Gadol Yom HaGshamim. It's a yontif not only for Jews, even for the Goyim, it's a yontif as well. Take it a step further. The physical body and the neshama. The body wants gashmias, food, this, that, whatever, I don't know. The soul wants ruchnias, spirituality. So it's in a constant fight. That's why in the Mesilat Yesharim, right in the first chapter, he talks about it. Pasuk says, "V'gam hanefesh lo timaleh." A person's soul will never be full. That's the source of depression, by the way. Why? So Mesilat Yesharim brings down a midrash. Mashal, lema davar domeh. The ironit shenasa bat melech. Ironi shenasa bat melech. There was a guy who was a simple guy, a peasant, and for whatever reason, the daughter of the king fell in love with him, and she married him. So the midrash says, even if he brings her everything in the world that he knows of, she's ein chashuv la klum. It's nothing to her. She's the daughter of a king. She's used to much higher standards in life. What does he know? By him, it's fancy to eat pizza with a topping. By her, she's eating Michelin star food every night. So what's he going to bring her? He's never going to be able to do anything for her. Comes to Midrash and says, the same thing is the person's neshama. Even if you bring him all the ma'adanei ha'olam, all the foods of the world, eino klum, it's nothing. Why? Shehi min ha'elyonim, because the neshama comes from shamayim, from a spiritual place. So all the materialistic things will never satisfy him. And that's why you see guys that are worth $90 billion, or a guy, and he still goes to work every morning. Shugana, you're worth so much money, take it easy. Play golf, I don't know, whatever it is. What's the answer? There's no sipuk, so they always have to be busy, because otherwise they get depressed in a second. And the busier they are, the happier they are. And there's no end to that. That's why retirement is not always the best thing for people. In general, the aging process after retirement expedites multiple times over. It's argued in modern research how many are the multiples, but they're very high numbers. The longer you can work, the better it is, because a person needs that. So the Ben Ish Chai says an unbelievable thing. He'll take home something good for Friday night. On Shabbat, what do we wish each other? Shabbat Shalom. Where does that come from? Wish each other Shabbat Sameach. Happy Shabbat. We say Chag Sameach, so why Shabbat? So maybe you'll say by Yom Tov there's a mitzvah simcha, by Shabbat not, but that's not true, because there is oineg, and part of oineg is feeling happy. So the Ben Ish Chai writes, it's very simple. Why? Because the whole week when a person eats, the neshama has no pleasure from it. So really, any food that you eat during the week is never going to keep you happy. But on Shabbat, being that it's a mitzvah to eat, so at that point the food becomes spiritual. If the food becomes spiritual, so then the neshama also has a part of it. And that's why, by the way, there's a malsha that says that even though on a regular day you're not allowed to overeat, because it's called achila gasa, on Shabbat there's no achila gasa. That's what he posek la'alacha. Why? Because being that on Shabbat you have a second neshama yitera, so there's no bound to how much you could eat. There's a big appetite. I don't know if it's conducive to diets, but at least it's not achila gasa. That much, yeah. That much I can tell you. No. So it comes out that Shabbat, what does Shabbat create? Peace between the body and the neshama. Because we're able to give the body what he wants in a way that it also makes the neshama happy. It's an unbelievable thing. And really, Hashem and humans are the most opposite extreme that could be. But anyway, Hashem created a person, B'Tselem Elokim, and Yisrael v'oraita v'kudsha b'richu chadu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that me and you are one, but with something in the middle. What's the connection between Hashem and Klal Yisrael? V'oraita and Torah. Meaning the thing that makes peace between us and God, that we're able to connect, even though we're opposite extremes, is the fact that we have Torah. On that the Chazon Ish writes words that people know, because thank God today people know some Ma'amarei Chazal or letters of Tzaddikim or whatever, because of songs. So Yidel Werdiger once made a beautiful song about this, so I think these words became very famous as a result. V'da ki ein etzev ba'olam. You should know that there's no sadness in the world. Klalu klal, at all, not even a drop. L'mi shemakir, to anybody who identifies, be'or ha'orot shel ha'emet, with the light of the lights of the truth of Hashem. If you have a real akara, a real vision of the truth of the light of Hashem, so then there's no etzev ba'olam, there's no sadness in this world. And if anybody's ever sad, so then he's not makir in the truth of Hashem. I say openly, I wake up every day on my left side. Every day. Some people say, today I woke up on my left side. I say, I wake up every day on my left side. But it doesn't last too long. The second I say, Modeh ani lefanecha, happiest person in life. What changed? It's not a magic trick, and it's not a sgula. As a human, life makes no sense. You have more bad days than good days. Would you go into a business that you lose more money than you make? It's crazy. But when you say Modeh ani, you say lefanecha. So then there's already, it's Hashem. So I'm in the world for Hashem. Melech chai v'kayam. And what did he put? Shechzalta bi nishmati, thought about me, to give me back my neshama. So is there anybody happier than me in the world at that point? That's it. And now the left side becomes the right side, and everything's beautiful, and the day is beautiful. In kenim advarim, so we could say that that's that's the conclusion really of the Simcha of Chodesh Adar. Chodesh Adar is when Hashem makes a connection between materialistic things and spiritual things. And that's when the soul can live in peace, and that's how we can get to Simcha. Purim, the mitzvahs are eating, drinking, gifts, this, that, charity, whatever. Even charity is a form of a physical thing at the end of the day. It's money. All these things are physical. On a regular day, there's no satisfaction from it. Comes Hashem and says, I'm going to make a whole month of Simcha for you, that you're eating and everything should be something that behind it is something spiritual, and then you'll be able to be b'simcha, there'll be peace. You won't have this problem of the heart not bleeding. How did Yirmiyahu Navi write Eicha v'Nevuah and be b'simcha? He wasn't b'simcha in Klal Yisrael's situation. He mourned Klal Yisrael's situation. He cried, Al Na'arot Bavel Sham Yashavnu Gam Bachinu V'Zocheinu Et Zion. They all mourned. The whole Klal Yisrael was crying, and Yirmiyahu Navi amongst them. He also told them, if you would have cried earlier, you wouldn't have to cry today. But one way or the other, Yirmiyahu definitely felt a connection to the Tsar of Klal Yisrael. But he was still able to be b'simcha because he understood the outcome of the Tsar of Klal Yisrael. When a kid sees his father going into cardio surgery, he's not happy, right? It's not pleasant. But at the same time, he should be happy, because this is exactly what's going to save his father's life. His father has clogged arteries, he's going to die. If they unclog the artery, he's going to live. So sometimes exactly what looks like the most painful thing in the world is the biggest simcha. And Golus had to happen for whatever reasons. We said a bunch of shiurim recently about it. And behind the galut, there was a big simcha. And that was what, that connection, that link was able to keep Yirmiyahu Navi happy. And that link is able to keep all opposites in connection and in a way that, in koach hachibur, in a real connection. I'll tell you a sharp word that I saw recently. He said that the ultimate simcha is a kimsos chatan al kala. Why? Because they're two opposites. So I'll tell you a chizuk for that. The Gemara says that the Tanaim warn their students that they should be very careful with the honor of their wives. Like that, they'll have good parnasa. Today, everybody says that he wants a sgula parnasa. One guy told me he's going to buy ptichat tayechal in the shul for parnasa for, I don't know, $30,000. So I got news for you. It might be if you spend that $30,000 on buying your wife a tennis bracelet, you'll have more parnasa. Not that I'm downplaying tzedakah chas v'shalom, the shul needs money and the yeshivas need money and everybody needs money. We should help them, we should give always everything. But at the same time, you know, a guy goes to shul and buys aliyahs for thousands of dollars and doesn't buy his wife flowers for Shabbos, he for sure has no schus in his aliyahs. His aliyahs are all one big sin. Because your wife comes first. She needs the attention, she needs the warmth, she needs that you thought about her, that comes before everything. That's the number one thing. No. So the Gemara says, respect your wife, and if you respect her, then you'll have good partners. What does one have to do with the other? What does one have to do with the other? Why not, I don't know, learn with your son Mishnayos, then you'll have good partners. So if anything, that I would understand more. So the answer is very simple. Why do we go to work in the first place? Because we got cursed. When did we get cursed? By the sin of Adam and Chava. What was the curse? Had the curse come about, Chava went to the Eitz Hadat, and together with Adam ate it. She got her curse, and we get our curse. Part of her curse was Be'etzev Tildi Banim, that she's going to have it hard in life with children. With the birth, probably labor, delivery, this, that. And it's not only that, Be'etzev Tildi Banim, Chazon Ish writes, is Leidah is until 120. Once you bring a child to the world, you're responsible for him forever. So raising children is not an easy thing, and in today's generation, definitely not. And the mother deals with the bulk of that. Right? I don't know, most men can count on one hand how many times in their life they changed the diaper. Some people don't even need the one hand to count, because it never happened. I'm not saying right or wrong. I don't want the feminists to get angry at me tonight. But that's just the way the world runs. The guy's at work from 6 in the morning to 10 at night. You know, by the time he comes home, he's a dead man. He's a skeleton. It's just the metzius of the world. No. So Hashem says, if you respect your wife, so you take away her curse. Her etziv that she has from starts lessening because she feels that she has a husband that cares about her, and So midah keneged midah, I'm going to reduce your curse. And therefore your parnasa won't become so hard. And it'll be also the same idea of an opposite that ends up being the same thing. Unbelievable thing. It's an opposite. And right after that, it turns it into the same thing. But all of that doesn't work without having learning in your life, and that's why it's so important to learn. Right? That we read in the Megillah, Chazal learn out, Megillah and other places. Ora zu Torah. If you learn Torah, then there's a chance that you'll be happy. If you don't learn Torah, there's no chance. It's a waste of time. It's never going to happen on it. And I end off with one more thought. Everybody's trying to be somebody else today. It's unbelievable. We're busy copying this one and copying that one and copying the other one. And he said and she said and social pressure and that's the world. If somebody one day wakes up in the morning and decides he needs a new white car, it's not because he needs a new white car. It's because he saw his neighbor has a new white car, so now he needs it. That's just the way of the world. Besides for the fact that that's sick and there's no way to ever be happy that way, it's also, and it's against Emunah and it's against everything Jewish that exists in the world. It's also wrong, period. There's nothing true to it. It's 100% wrong. Because it's not going to make you happy. You have everything in the world, it's not going to make you happy. Happiness exists only if you have a state of mind that's open to being happy, then you could be a happy person. And if not, no matter what you have in the world, you will never be happy. And over the years I've experimented much with my children and bought them all different extravagant things that they wanted and this and that. And that's not what made them happy. When my son comes home from yeshiva after a week or 2 weeks or sometimes a month of learning straight, non-stop, hours and hours a day, which is hard sweat work, most people wouldn't be able to do that. He's the happiest person in the world. He's glowing. Gan Eden, what do you mean? So the fancy custom suit and the fancy glasses and the fancy this and the cars and nothing. Even though he wants it, but nothing. And the Pikudei Hashem Yesharim V'Samchei Lev, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Koach of Simcha in the Torah. Why? It's not the Torah. It's because that is the only link. That's the only way to connect. That's what's there. If you have that, you have a mean to connect. If you don't have that, you don't have a mean to connect. And that's why a person should make sure that he has some sort of Kviyut Itim La Torah, and I'm sorry to burst all your bubbles. Getting a 3-minute clip of some random speaker that shouldn't be speaking in the first place in most cases doesn't qualify as learning Torah. If it was a funny story, so maybe it qualifies as entertainment. But beyond, and entertainment's also important sometimes. Rav Nachman says if somebody is depressed, he should listen to Amili de Bdichuta, fine. So these are nice jokes sometimes. But beyond that, that doesn't qualify as a connection with Hashem. And if you think it does, you're lying to yourself, and you're never going to be happy, you're never going to have a connection with Hashem. Connection with Hashem takes a lot of years, and a lot of work, and you have to clock a lot of hours, and at the beginning it's not easy, and you don't feel pleasure in it. If anything, you feel suffering in it. The Torah clearly says when you start learning, right, that it was marak, ki marim him, the water tasted bitter. It's only after you get into it, then vayimteku hamayim, it becomes sweet. But at the beginning, divrei Torah kashim, Chazal say, it's hard, it doesn't come easy at all. But at the end of the day, if somebody's in the worst mood in the world, and somehow you succeeded to convince him to learn a Daf Gemara, and he learned it miraculously, he's happy. I deal with people all day. And let me tell you, I used to sit and argue and this and that and listen. Now I said, buddy, come sit, let's learn something. Now I'm not going to tell him let's learn because he's going to be like, what are you telling me what to do? I said, do me a favor, I never have time to learn and that. You're here, maybe together because of you I'll have a schus, I'll learn a few Jewish words, it'll help me. Make me your kiruv project. So I tell him. I have tons and tons of kola guys in Lakewood that over the years that suffered depression on one level or the other, and I didn't want them on Prozac and by therapists. And they believed that I was their kiruv project. And that's what gave them their simcha in life. That gave them their joy in life. I got Yaakov to learn half an hour today. The best part is when there's 6 guys like that back to back, you just got to make sure they don't show up and see each other outside. Yeah. But why not? Because a person could be in the worst mood in the world, L'pikudei Hashem yisharim v'samchei lev. That's the best Prozac in the world. L'pikudei Hashem yisharim. It's going to bring simcha to a person's heart. So Mishichnas Adar Marbim B'Simcha means that Mishichnas Adar, we start learning more. We get more involved in chesed and more involved in things. And even the materialistic things we do, we view them as a achana for Purim, and at that point, they make peace between the guf and the neshama. And then we live in peace. And when we live in peace, we have a very high level of simcha as a result. Hashem should help. But really, we should have a Adar that's le'elo. Right at the beginning of Adar, there's a whole month ahead of us. Every day should be exactly as I said at the beginning, higher levels and higher levels and higher levels. Not in theory and not in fantasy, in reality. It should really be, today's a better day than yesterday. And Purim should be, we should be zeicha to be mekayem Purim kilchato, with all the chumas and all the anhogos that there are in Klal Yisrael, and get from it all the hashpaot and everything that Hashem has in store, that a person can reach on Purim, all the high levels. Bifrat kol haposhet yad notnim lo. And I was asked to address this coronavirus thing. I don't know why they asked me, but I think because somebody went and spread some voice note of some fake rumor that Rav Chaim Kanievsky said that there's nothing to worry about. I verified it this morning. It's one big lie. Lo haya v'lo nivra. Rav Chaim never said anything about it. This morning when somebody went into him for me and asked him what's the attitude to the coronavirus, his answer was, what's that? So he never said anything. People lie in the name of Rav Chaim all day. It's disgusting already. It's really disgusting already. What's the Jewish attitude to coronavirus? So let me tell you. I'm going to tell you what they're not going to tell you. So first of all, Gamliel Rabinovich, who's a big Balman Kubel and a tzaddik and a yid, that's a big Ovid Hashem. You may not understand him because he talks a little different or whatever, but he's a big Ovid Hashem. I know him since 1993 on a very personal level. Big Ovid Hashem. And he's a Kohen. So he put out a video this week that he says that if you daven with a minyan 3 times a day and never miss, then you're protected somehow. Okay, Alavai is right. That would make it a lot easier for a lot of people. Could be. But in halacha, there is an obligation of ishtadlus. Ishtadlus is in a place shehezeko matsui, where it's common that something bad can happen. So Baruch Hashem, so far in New York, we've been more or less okay, except for a few isolated cases that weren't a big deal. But if that was ever, God forbid, and it should never happen to change, then a person has every obligation to take precautions in a place that has a komatsui. I can tell you from the business world, if today you want to be a wisecrack and go to Thailand or to China or to Italy or whatever, Hashem is not going to protect you. You're going to come back sick, as simple as that. And I'm not wishing bad on anybody in the world, not Jew and not Goy. It's just a fact, because Hashem doesn't protect fools. If you jump off the roof, God's not catching you. It's as simple as that. You're not allowed to put yourself in a mokam sakona. You're not allowed to go into a place of danger. There's no heta in the world for that. Airplanes in general, definitely airplanes that have connecting flights to Asia and places like that, are not the wisest idea, especially if you're flying coach when 800 people are breathing down your throat, or to be more literal, about 265. It might not be the wisest idea. So if you don't have to do it to these type of countries and whatever, and don't do it. And if you do have to do it for whatever reason, at least go to an Adam Gadol and get him to say it's okay. Go to Abdul Feinstein, the Gadol of America, and ask him if it's okay to do. Because if a Gadol said out of his mouth, yeah, you could go, so then you know you're okay. But there's definitely, right now, thank God, it's not Shchichi Azeka in the place we live. But in a place that is Shchichi Azeka, yeah, there's a mitzvah in the Torah. You have to take care of your health. You definitely shouldn't be exposing yourself to unnecessary garbage and unnecessary things and whatever. And al pi halacha, that has to be. The Tasha Rebbe spoke last night. Hashem should give him a long life. The current Tasha Rebbe, and he spoke about coronavirus. It was very interesting. And he didn't say it like a Gamliel to daven with a minyan, but he did say, in the name of the Tosfot Yom Tov, that if we learn to respect synagogues and not talk during davening, and just have respect for Beit Hashem, for the house of Hashem, then there's no Magefa. Magefa is a plague, a pandemic, coronavirus otherwise known as, for example, that could ever affect a Jew. So he spoke a very fiery speech about that now we have to have a chizuk in our shuls, and that it should be, that the shul should be like a shul. That the shul is not a social club. And Elamai, people don't have patience to daven 3 hours, so then the rabbis have to begin to understand that maybe it's time to shorten the prayer Shabbat morning, because the Kahal doesn't have patience. And what's the mitzvah? Making speeches and selling aliyot and doing Misha Berach when everybody's talking. It's just one big sin. Then nothing good comes out of that. Cut it down to an hour and 3/4, and then people will be able to be quiet. They won't have to talk. People don't think like that. That's the truth. And if you are a person that can't stay quiet in shul, so go out. What do you have to talk in shul for? What's the pleasure in talking inside the Beit Hashem, spitting in Hashem's face? Go outside, make kiddush with your friends, bring a bottle of scotch, have a good time, schmooze, chill. Whenever you're ready to come back, come back. At least you didn't spit in God's face. You didn't say I came all the way to shul to make fun of you. So yeah, that's my response. These were Gdolei Yisrael. Who cares what I have to say? Gdolei Yisrael said that things that have to do with Tefillah B'tziburim and Kvod Beit HaKnesset and other things like that are important. And these are the things that protect us from Agefos. So therefore, the more we're mitchazek in this inyan, definitely we don't have to go into any panics, and we can stay calm, and Hashem will be with us. I'm not downplaying this virus. This is a very dangerous thing, and if God forbid it spread, this could be the end. But Hashem watches over us. There's nothing to worry about. We got to do ours. Our ishtadlus is to respect the shul more, and then the rest is up to God to protect us. By the way, there's a Zohar in this week's parasha. If you look at it, you want to look it up, you can look it up. It's on page Kufay Bet Amud Bet. I don't want to read it from inside now because then I have to translate every word and I won't be here until tomorrow. But the Zohar over there talks that at the end of the days of Mashiach, there's first going to be one virus, and they're going to have some sort of control over it when it spreads around countries of the world. And after that, he doesn't write how much later after that, there'll be another virus that's going to be similar but worse than the first virus. SARS, coronavirus, I think, no? Any of you doctors, do you agree with me? And that's going to spread all over the world, and that's going to be Hashem's way of puring the world so Mashiach could come. So according to the Zohar, at the end of the days before Biat Mashiach, that's not Ikvus D'Mshicha, that's at the end of Ikvus D'Mshicha. So Be'ez Hashem, this year Pesach, you don't have to book hotels, we'll all be in Yerushalayim, in the Beis HaMikdash, Nachal min HaZvachim u'min HaPsachim, Benachat u'B'simcha, Amen v'Amen.